we're going to be talking about emancipatory pedagogy. I'm looking forward to this conversation because, being honest, I'm not as familiar with emancipatory pedagogy, so I'm looking forward to learning about it. Just like learning about it with you, and so I'm excited for that. It's been a really good week so far. The weather here in Idaho has been interesting. We actually had a tornado last night. So I woke up, truck was all dirty, mud and everything all over the place. Today it rained a little bit, but then it's sunny. I don't know. This is Idaho weather. It's just one of those things you never really know what you're going to experience when it comes in. But anyway, we're going to get started in just a moment. As always, if you're out there, feel free to say hello. Tell us where you're from. Always love to hear and see, I guess, who's out there. So feel free to do so. Today's special guest is Dr. Darlene Sampson. Lives by her late parents' mantra. Giving back to others is in your DNA. You must respect and honor the shoulders you have stood on. With that thinking in mind, Dr. Sampson has maintained a space of social justice and cultural humility as she works across the education and social work fields as an instructor, administrator, leader, and equity specialist. It's always good to have a conversation with Dr. Sampson. She makes me laugh all the time. So I'm looking forward to this. And so without further ado, as a matter of fact, we're going to bring her on right now. So welcome, Dr. Darlene Sampson. How you doing?
Hello, and hello whoever's out there.
So did you have a good day so far today?
This was my nap day. Okay. I was tired. And so I took a good nap so I'd be ready. And it's kind of like you said, how it is in Idaho. It's really quiet here, really sort of drab outside today. So it's one of those days you just chill and get ready for the sun tomorrow.
Doing that equity work will make you want to take a nap every now and then.
Yes,
so I can understand that. Well, I just read like a couple sentences on your bio, but for those who aren't as familiar with you, could you share a little bit about yourself and what you currently do?
Yes. So I work for the Western Educational Equity Assistance Center, and that is one of 4 equity centers across the nation. And we are supported by the Department of Education. Our services are free to schools and school districts and some organizations, K through 12 schools, and we support them with technical assistance, training, onboarding teachers. It might be equity auditing. And we all 4 centers across the nation right now are waiting to be recertified. It is a 5-year grant. And the work is really hard and it's heavy. And there's so much to do around equity at this point.
Wow. Well, thank you for the work that you're doing. That's kind of how we got connected, because I'm in Idaho. And so your area, it covers several states. Which states do you cover?
Of the 13 states, Idaho is one of them, but California, Nevada, 3 territories. We cover Colorado, but we also cover Hawaii, Guam, Island of Mariana. So lots of states, all in the Western region.
Got you. Well, that's pretty awesome. And I've had an opportunity to work with you and do some workshops as well. And actually we'll have your video for you in a couple of days as well. So
no problem.
That'll come to you. But yeah, it's been good work, and I like what we're doing, and I think it's very important. And which kind of leads me to the topic of today, emancipatory pedagogy.
That's right.
I would love for you to start us off by sharing, like, what is that? What is emancipatory pedagogy?
So, Dr. Akins, I think I want to start with the word emancipation.
Okay.
Because people are often afraid of that word, and some people, it's liberatory. And so in order to do emancipatory pedagogy, you have to be free, which is what emancipation means, from legal, societal, educational barriers that are not supportive, that are inequitable. So that means pushing up and against a system that is designed to maintain the status quo, which is what the educational system is. So it sort of seems incongruent that emancipatory pedagogy, your instructional toolbox, your
Mhm.
knowledge, the way that you teach, and the way that you connect could actually be in a system that was designed to maintain the status quo. So the emancipatory pedagogy has to do with teaching from a space that is conscious, robust, validating, affirming. It's not an afraid of pedagogy, it's a boom pedagogy. It goes close to the heart of what's happening in community schools, the world. You're teaching from a global perspective. And so it's really anchored in social justice. So, for instance, a school, I will see a school where there is a teacher who's strongly teaching from a space of helping their students
Mhm.
navigate the world, push against policy, push against inequities, and that's in room 12. But in room 14, nobody's talking about anything
Yeah.
like that at all.
Yeah.
So it's not just the pedagogy, it's the teacher's instructional style and knowledge. And in order to be able to do it, you have to have some idea about the word emancipation and what does it mean for our students, and how would you teach them so that they can be global citizens, because we don't want them just walk out the school. They've got to be able to talk about what's happening in the world and to be able to identify what are the challenges, what needs to happen. So it's often called critical pedagogy as well.
Okay.
And sometimes I was asked to do a training one time, and I was talking about emancipatory pedagogy. And one of the scholars said, Dr. Sampson, I wonder if we should just call it critical pedagogy. I think people be more interested. They won't be so afraid. And it's too close to critical race theory.
Mm.
Well, it is anchored. Dr. Ferreri gave us some understanding about critical pedagogy
Yeah.
and the ability to push it. So, of course, I didn't go with that because that's not me. I said, you talk about in the way that you want to, but I'm going to talk about it in the way that it was anchored.
Yes. So what I'm hearing is, and thank you for that, because I've actually my latest episode on the podcast was about, I do equity work, right? We do equity work, and
Yeah.
lately, I've been asked to change stuff and
Hmm.
change my language, and people might not be as comfortable or open to those conversations. So I
Yes.
like what you said. You stuck to your guns and said, no, this is what we're going to talk about. This is
That's
what we're going
right.
to do. Now
Mhm.
I have done this. I'm not gonna lie. I have done this. I have had people ask me to change the title of my session,
Yeah.
and I have changed the title of my session with the understanding that the content will remain the same.
Yeah.
It's just if the title if that's the catalyst or
Hmm.
whatever to keep people from coming into my session,
Yeah.
then I will change the title. I don't have a problem with that, but the content won't change. It's going to
Hmm.
be the same, and it's not going to be a bait and switch. It will be the same content. It just maybe the title might differ. Has that been your experience as well?
I've been asked to change my hair, let alone the title. So my experience has been to change everything about who I
Mm,
am. And
yeah.
that's why I push back, because that's the part of emancipatory pedagogy that says
Mm,
we're going to talk really strongly about what's happening. And I know there's spaces you have to change things, move
sure.
things around. There have been times where my language is different,
Mhm,
um, but I really try to stay true to the perspective of it, because it's a critical pedagogy. It's a radical pedagogy. We know that when we really do this work, we often aren't liked.
mhm.
We're actually doing a good job if,
If we're
if we're not
that's good
liked.
press, right? Like
Yeah,
when you're in people's blogs and stuff
yeah,
and getting that's a good thing. That means you're doing something
absolutely.
right.
Yes. And so, because it is a radical pedagogy, and we want to be reverent of those who set the boundaries, set the precedent, who are ancestors, everyone that anchored the infrastructure for emancipatory pedagogy to go forth, I am in awe of. And it is difficult to step in those spaces, but why should I be scared when my
Mm,
ancestors did so much? So the little bit that I do, and I stand up for a day conference, or I come for an hour and a half, or I'm on a show, or I'm on a television station, that's the least I could do to talk frankly about how pedagogy has to change the world. We don't want the banking system. We just
Nope.
throw stuff in our kids' heads and let's get them out, push them out, get them graduating, but they don't change the world. They don't ask questions. They don't say, "Excuse me, why are there more liquor stores in my neighborhood than libraries?"
Mm.
They don't ask who in history was different, diverse, gender, sexuality, size, skin tone, um, income. So the pedagogy teaches them to push up and against what is really not real. Because authentically, who's in the world? So many different types of folks.
Mm.
So in a classroom, it is a very interesting and a very robust way of teaching kids, and all kids need it because it also has a social justice piece, but it also has a caring part, an empathic part that says, I got to care about other people and it's not all about me.
Listen, we 5 minutes in.
Preach. No.
You Dr. Sampson, we're 5 minutes in. Okay, now here's the thing. As I'm listening to what you're saying, and you're bringing the fire, but as I'm listening to, it sounds like teacher activism is part of
Yes.
the emancipatory. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yes. So, I mean, where would you get your bearings? Where would you get your rooting to
Mhm.
be able to teach from that space if you didn't have a social justice lens?
Yeah.
How could you teach in a class of 20% indigenous students, 10% black students, 40% white students? However, in that community, there's no fairness to certain groups, and
Mhm.
you're not talking about it. Where are you reading? How are you engaging? So the teacher has to have done their own work and is continually doing their own work to be to teach from that perspective. And we know about teacher education. We know about training. A lot of teachers don't have that onboarding.
Mhm.
I think there's 80% white teachers right now
Yeah.
across the country. Where would they know that when that student walks in your space, you better know their dog's name, not just open the book? You got to know mama's name. You got to know where they live and how they breathe on this earth. So, without teaching teachers like that, it's a very tough thing to do in a system that is designed not to be emancipatory.
Okay. Here's a question, because it sounds I don't want to say it sounds easy on paper,
Yeah.
but it does sound like, oh, based off of what I'm hearing, and let's say again, I'm not as familiar, so like, for
Mhm.
those who are watching as well, it's like, okay, oh, okay, so it's activism pieces, but
Yep.
I know, especially in our political climate and stuff that's happening in our schools these days, there's a lot of challenges, or um maybe not challenges, but there's I guess job security is
Mhm.
is a question that is on a lot of people's minds when it comes to being an educator and being emancipatory.
Yeah.
I'm the only one at my school that's really trying to push back. It's just me.
Yep.
What type of advice would you have for individuals who are in those, or feel like they're in those
Mhm.
situations where it just feels like it's just them?
Find another place. No.
Find another
So
job.
so here's the challenge.
Okay.
You could be in a school where the school leader, principal, executive director
Mhm.
is so pleased with helping our kids to be global thinkers, critical thinkers. We find that teachers like that, their scores look higher, their
Mhm.
kids are more engaged, the parents more engaged. But let one parent call the principal and
Yeah.
find out how supportive uh,
Mhm.
they will still be.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes, and so people are afraid, and teachers have to find the right space for their right skills. And you can begin even in your interview, being interviewed, you're interviewing the school about the culture and the climate. And so you're interviewing the school about the culture and the climate. And so we're only talking about a school, but emancipatory pedagogy, it should be in instructional leaders, in data partners, um, in curriculum and reading, in the vendor that you even select for the literature and the curriculum you're going to use. It should be at the central office. Ideally, a board, that's even harder, says we got to teach our kids in ways that relate to them and make them connect, and that it's the teaching is a conduit for learning. And so it's district, it's everywhere, and what you find is pockets.
Okay.
So to be realistic, when I think about working all over this country and even outside the country, I have found pockets of emancipatory behavior. I didn't say pedagogy, emancipatory behavior.
So there's a difference. Emancipatory behavior. Okay, you're gonna have to break that down too.
So that's consciousness.
Okay.
And they start with the consciousness, but because of the barriers of the system, they often can't even get to the pedagogy piece. And so there's a challenge. It's sort of on a continuum, Dr. Akins, where you find that people can start with their own consciousness because they've done some work and they know that kids really do connect when it looks like them. It's local, it's global. We pair the current and the old, but then they find the barriers. The books look the same, the same units being taught for 10 years. So if you had a lesson, this is just at the school level, and I'll get to the district level, but at a school level, you have a unit on figures in science and how they've contributed to the world. Well, don't just read the unit, have them do the typical artwork, the objectives, the do nows. What's the other part of the question of the lesson is, who created this? How does it accommodate people of difference, gender? Where did this come from? Is this really true? How would you dissect this? Does this even connect to you? So those are the other parts of emancipatory pedagogy that says, think through this, understand this, understand historically what's happening. And so the push right now is, if we don't talk about it, it didn't happen.
Right.
And that's the challenge for an instructor, a teacher. And I've actually used emancipatory pedagogy when I teach in the School of Social Work in lots of different ways. So it can be embedded. It's not just in education. It can be in a lot of places. So getting back to the science lesson, you have some questions to think about, not the typical 5 questions in the book. As a group, I want you to dissect what you're hearing and seeing, and who's missing in history and in this science lesson, who's there, and what do we not know about this situation?
Okay. I got questions.